On the 12th of September 1919, Adolf Hitler, then an intelligence agent of a reconnaissance unit of the German army, went to a meeting here at the Sternecker Brau beer hall. His job was to spy on political parties. Presumably, this involved taking notes, observing what was going on, and then clear off as quickly as possible and as quietly as possible without bringing attention to himself. Espionage, however, does not seem to have been one of Hitler's strong points, as he became involved in an argument with another visitor, one Professor Baumann. According to Hitler's own account, the professor knew he was beaten and left like a wet poodle. Impressed, the organizer of the meeting gave Hitler a pamphlet of his and suggested he might like to join the party. The party was the German Workers' Party, and the local party was headed in Munich by Anton Drexler. Anton Drexler was born in Munich on the 13th of June 1884. His father worked on the railway. He followed in his father's footsteps. After an apprenticeship as a locksmith, he first worked as a tool fitter in a Berlin locomotive factory and as from 1902 in a Munich railway workshop. He married Anna Drexler and had 2 children with her, a son, Anton, and a daughter, Anne-Marie. Despite being of military age, he was 30 when the war broke out. He did not volunteer and he was not called up, allegedly for being unfit. We see the same lack of devotion in fellow future Nazi Dietrich Eckart, who espoused rabid nationalist sentiments, but not so much as to put himself in harm's way. But hey, who knows? Maybe both of them had bone spurs. In 1917, he joined the newly founded, and as it happened, short-lived, German Fatherland Party. This party had been founded by conservative landowners, including Admiral Tirpitz, in Koenigsburg town hall, but sought out to reach the working classes to become the backbone of its support, even though all it could offer them was victory in a war which would scarcely benefit them. Despite having over 1.2 million members, the party ceased to exist after the end of 1918. On the 7th of March 1918, together with 27 colleagues from his workplace in what was then the Royal Bavarian State Railway Central Workshop in Munich, he founded a branch of the Free Workers' Committee for a Good Peace. This organization had been created in Bremen, and his objective was, well, at least as far as Drexler was concerned, as he later wrote, to strengthen the Bavarian will to win, especially amongst the workers in Munich. Using contacts such as the rather wealthy playwright Dietrich Eckart, Drexler was able to have such dignitaries as General Felix Graf von Bothmer, noted for commanding troops on the Eastern Front, to address his group. In January 1918, he used his organization to oppose the striking munition workers, although not going as far as to do their work whilst they were on strike. In the meantime, the Thule Society had been founded. It was a grouping of generally wealthy nationalist racists with ideas that mixed the occult with Greek and Nordic myths. It operated in a sort of semi-secret way, well, as much secrecy as could be expected in an organization that had 1,750 members. In 1918, the Thule Society came out of secrecy, buying a local weekly newspaper, the Münchner Beobachter, which is the Munich Observer, and changed its name to Münchner Beobachter und Sportblatt, So it's now the Munich Observer and sports paper. This is a pretty good idea because it's not everybody who was interested in a pile of occult with Greek and Nordic myths, but most people do like to know who won yesterday's football match. So no doubt that did help improve its circulation. The Münchner Beobachter later became the Völkischer Beobachter, the main Nazi newspaper. In this way, it attempted to influence the poorer elements of society. Another idea it had was to use the right-wing journalist Karl Harrer, who edited the Münchner Beobachter und Sportblatt, who approached Anton Drexler, who had already shown that he had a bit of organizational ability when it came to a nationalist and racist ideology being spread amongst people with more limited financial means. Harrer suggested that Drexler form some sort of a secret society, which led to the Political Workers' Circle. In December 1918, Drexler found himself at an anti-Bolshevik conference in Berlin when he was arrested. Soon afterwards, Drexler decided he wanted to start his own political party. Clearly disillusioned with the defeat in the war and belief in the stab in the back conspiracy theory, even though he had done nothing to fight in that war, he clearly wanted to do something about it. Thus was born the DAP, that is, the German Workers' Party, on the 5th of January 1919, using the resources of the Thule Society, the ideas of four men, Dietrich Eckart, who I covered in another video, Gottfried Feder, and Karl Harrer, and of course, Drexler himself. Around this time, Drexler published My Political Awakening from the Diary of a German Socialist Worker. This was the 60-page pamphlet that ended up in Hitler's hand, and what you can see here in this video. This copy comes from a California library. Drexler may not have wanted to continue running a sort of secret organization, but there was not much interest in the DAP at the beginning. The first meeting had only 10 people present, which is only 2 more than will probably end up watching this video. However, word of the party did get out, someone in the army learned of its existence, and Hitler was ordered to attend the meeting. According to historian Joachim Fest, there can have been no more than 60 members of the DAP at the time. On the 12th of September 1919, there were 41 people at the meeting. The main speaker that day was Gottfried Feder, one of the founders of the party, and although he came from a very well-off background, he had somewhat communist-like economic ideas. His business had suffered from the war and he blamed the banks. His private war was with what he termed interest slavery, which he wanted abolished. When Feder's talk concluded, Hitler got involved in a heated political argument with Professor Adalbert Baumann, who questioned the soundness of Feder's arguments relating to Bavarian separatism and against capitalism. After Baumann departed like a wet poodle, to use Hitler's words, Drexler approached Hitler and gave him a copy of his pamphlet, My Political Awakening, and in doing so lost control of his party, although that was to happen later. Hitler said that on reading the pamphlet it reflected his ideals and so applied to join the party, although either with the permission of or on the orders of the army. Soldiers were not then permitted to join political parties, so the latter is more likely. Hitler's first DAP speech was held in the Hofbraukeller in Munich on the 16th of October 1919. He was the second speaker of the evening and spoke to 111 people. Hitler later declared that this was when he realized that he could make a really good speech and could pull the crowds in, once word got out, of course. Soon there were hundreds coming to hear him speak. Karl Harrer and his overlords at the Tula Society wanted to keep it a secret organization. Hitler wanted to form a mass party, as did Drexler. Thus, in January 1920, the link with the Tula Society was broken, although this organization continued to exist almost to the end of the decade. The party needed to have a program, and what was to become its 25 points appeared to have been hammered out in the restaurant Zum Deutschen Reich in Munich Neuhausen on the 5th of February 1920, at which Dietrich Eckart was the main speaker. On the 19th of February 1920, Hitler was in his former childhood town of Passau speaking to a well-attended audience. On the 24th of February 1920, 2,000 people came to the Hofbrauhaus in Munich. Here, for the first time, Hitler announced the unalterable 25 points of the German Workers' Party, which he had authored with Drexler and Feder. I will go through the points in a separate video, but to suffice to say they're a mixture of nationalist, racist and communist type aims. On the same day, the party was renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP. Drexler claimed in 1941 that he had been behind many of the original points, a claim that was borne out by notes that survived from 1920. In July 1921, Hitler and Eckart went to Berlin on a fundraising mission. In their absence, the committee, with Drexler at its head, attempted to merge the party with the German Socialist Party. Hitler was furious when he found out, and on the 11th of July 1921, Hitler resigned from the party. The others, however, realized that it was Hitler who brought in the crowds. Dietrich Eckart, to whom Hitler treated as a father figure, persuaded him to return, but on condition, or so Hitler said, that he would replace Drexler as party chairman. On the 29th of July 1921, this was put to the vote. Hitler became party leader after a vote which he won by 533 votes to 1. Drexler presumably voted for himself, but no one else did. As a result, the Führer principle was born, giving him effective sole say in what the party can do, later what the country could do, and that had disastrous results for all of Europe. Now, as an aside comment, why was Hitler so furious at the link-up with the German Socialist Party? At the end of the day, the two parties were very much alike. Documents surfaced in 2017 which answer this question. Around September 1919, Hitler appeared at the office of the publishing house of the German Socialist Party. He spoke to Hans-Georg Grassinger, who was then in charge, and offered to join the party and write for its paper. He also asked to borrow money from Grassinger. But Grassinger told him that the party had no use for him in the paper, and also that it didn't want to have him in the party. Hitler had not forgotten the slight. However, when the German Socialist Party was wound up, he accepted many of its members in the NSDAP, including, amongst others, Julius Streicher. After his defeat and loss of party control, Drexler was moved to the purely symbolic position of honorary president. As we say in British English, he was kicked upstairs. He left the party in 1923, no doubt humiliated at the turn of events. According to his obituary, he was assaulted by a group of 60 Marxists in April 1923 at his place of work and was seriously injured. Presumably, however, he did get a chance to count the 60 Marxists who were assaulting him. Drexler was arrested in the aftermath of the Beer Hall Putsch on the 9th of November 1923, but was released after spending a week in Landsberg prison, when it was clear that not only had he not participated in the putsch, but had not known of the plans for it. In 1924, he was selected to the Bavarian State Parliament for the Völkischer Bloc, in which he served as vice president until 1928. In February 1925, he founded the National Socialist People's Union, which was a group within the Völkischer Bloc. In 1928, he ceased to sit in the state parliament and lost all political influence. The Nazi Party was made legal in the aftermath of the attempted coup. It was legalized again in 1925, but Drexler did not join. He did, however, become one of the hundreds of thousands who joined in the aftermath of the Nazi seizure of power in 1933. Drexler received the Nazi Party's Blood Order in 1934 for his services in building up the NSDAP at the beginning. Originally, the Blood Order medal was given to people who had taken part in the attempted putsch of the 9th of November 1923. Then it was granted to those old fighters who had been continuously in the party up until the 1st of January 1932, then to anyone who had served more than 1 year in prison for the party, and later to those who had died fighting in the Nazi cause. Drexler fitted into none of those categories. One had to apply for the medal oneself, so presumably he did so, and no one questioned his eligibility. I need to point out, of course, that if you were dead, a personal application wasn't required. In 1937, a new edition of My Political Awakening was published, and it is this edition I have used in this video. Drexler was sometimes wheeled out for propaganda purposes, but was never allowed any power within the party. In 1940, Drexler drafted a letter to Hitler, which he had the good sense not to send. Hitler often claimed to be the 7th party member. He was in fact the 7th executive member of the party's Central Committee. Furthermore, he would later wear the Golden Party Badge, a special award given to all Nazi Party members who had, as of the 9th of November 1933, registered numbers from 1 to 100,000 and unbroken party membership. The recipient's party number was inscribed on the reverse of the badge. Therefore, Hitler should have had number 555, but he gave himself the number 1. Anton Drexler wrote, "No one knows better than you yourself, my Führer, that you were never the 7th member of the party, but at best the 7th member of the committee. And a few years ago I had to complain to a party office that your first proper membership card of the DAP, bearing the signatures of Schlüsser and myself, was falsified, with the number 555 being erased and number 7 entered." I think we can read between the lines in that letter and see that by now Drexler was not too happy at the way things turned out. One wonders what might have happened to him had he sent the letter. Drexler died in Munich on the 24th of February 1942, almost unnoticed. The cause of his death was a long illness, caused in no short way by alcohol consumption. On Thursday, the 26th of February 1942, news of his death was reported in the Völkischer Beobachter. Here we have page 5 of the Völkischer Beobachter of Friday, the 27th of February 1942, in which his obituary appears. No words from the current Nazi leadership, just from his wife, children and future son-in-law. He was only 57. Like Dietrich Eckart before him, he died in his 50s from a love for the bottle and not for his country.